We're very pleased to have with us today Craig Peterson. He's had a fascinating life. He's had a wondrous life, and he's going to share with us some of the highlights, some of the things that's happened in his life that will help make our lives brighter. And we'd like to hear from him. Craig, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Thank you for being on. If you'll share some of the interesting highlights in your life, some of the things that you've been through, and go ahead. The stage is yours. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if we like to call them highlights or not. I am not really unlike most other people. A little bit about myself. I'm 71 years old, or I often like to say I'm 50 plus 21. It makes me feel younger, I suppose, but there's some significant things that happened at age 50. So, major life change, and I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But briefly, as I started out, I really loved life, probably so many others. I was born in 1951. I was born in Oakland, California, raised in Southern California, Los Angeles area and Orange County area, if anybody's familiar. My mother was a secretary. My father, my real father, was an independent businessman, ran dealerships, service stations, Union Oil 76 stations, and that kind of thing. He had been a Marine.
How was your life as you were growing up? Did you feel like you had a happy life, a medium life? What would you say your childhood was growing up?
Overall, looking back, I think my life was very good, and I like to refer to today was God was good for me. God was good to me back then, although I didn't know it. You know, we lived initially in a little community called Compton, California, which later became known on the news and as of today as Watts, California. That's where I first went to school. That's where I first went to kindergarten and first grade. I remember that we lived in Compton on a little street called Peru Street. I remember that because of my elementary school, my first one was just down the street. I remember the early days going to school one day, probably right on. And I have to say this, during that period of time, I'm a little white boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. And in that neighborhood and going to school, I first saw my first person really that I identified with that was of a different color. Now that didn't really matter at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years, whatever. I learned kind of quickly that some of the people that were of other color were called names. And a lot of people, when you're kids, everybody calls each other names, so I didn't think much about it. But I had a real hard time trying to figure out why that was, because I was kind of a good kid. Anyway, that's where we grew up. My mother and father separated and got divorced when I was 9 years old. My father had an affair with somebody and met up with her and took off and went his way, and my mother took myself and my brother, and we moved in with my father's parents in Paramount, California. So we were there in that area for quite a while as a kid. My mother was brought up in the church, in the Latter-day Saint church. I was grown up kind of in the Latter-day Saint church. She met a man at a dance. Everybody on this podcast are familiar with it. There's a lot of social activities in that church, probably like many other churches. She met a fellow who was becoming a school teacher, and they ended up marrying, and he became my stepfather, and we moved from the Compton area to Orange County to what is now a very nice area called Newport Beach, California. When I was little, it was just a small town out in the county, but I grew up in a very nice neighborhood, in a very nice school, and a very nice community, for that matter, at that time. I didn't know it. It was probably, again, go back to being a kid. It was just with mom and dad, wherever we lived, that's where it was. That's where I went to school. I either liked school or didn't. I liked classes. I didn't. However, a few things were happening in my life about that. Now I've become 10, 11 years old, going to new schools. My stepfather and my mother both had become more active in our church. So therefore, my brother and I did too. I spent a lot of time not only in school, but going to church.
I just wanted, and we can cut this out, but I just want to tell you, we have about 15 minutes, so I want to make sure that you cover everything.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
So just in a nutshell, that's where I grew up. I graduated. I learned a lot during that period. I graduated in 1970 from high school. Fast forward, got married for the first time in my mid-20s, early 20s. Married for 25 years. Had 2 children from that marriage. Had a career. I ended up in the automobile business. I sold automobiles and ran automobile dealerships. And it was in the 70s and 80s when I was doing all that, in the 90s. And there was a thing called alcohol and partying and having a good time at work. And oh boy, I joined in. I had a good time at that. I made a lot of money, rare, somebody that young, but I made a lot. And I spent it all, and I played, and I didn't understand who I was. The reason I touch on that is as the 25-year marriage became, longer, and we became more distant, and the kids grew up, and my career would go up and down, I started behaving pretty badly as a person, really drinking a lot, spending a lot of money, cheating on my marriage, cheating on my soul, quite frankly. I didn't know what to do. I got divorced. I found myself living in Las Vegas. Through a series of events, I'd kind of messed up my career, my job. I was in my late 40s, just coming up on 50 years old. I met another girlfriend along the way, and ultimately, we don't have a lot of time, I ultimately married and divorced her both in sobriety. But there came the time I turned 50 years old. It was 2002. I had really become a mess. I'm going to share a bit of that with you. If you saw me today, you'd say, well, there's a guy that's in pretty good shape. Back then, I wasn't, though. I was 350 pounds. I was 350 pounds with a 56 waist, 22 net, completely broke financially, lying to everybody. Every check I would write would bounce. You certainly wouldn't want to take one from me. And I would do everything I could to spend all the money at the bar every night to look good, feel good, drinking and having my steaks and cigars, but I couldn't pay the rent. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know I was an alcoholic. If somebody said I was an alcoholic, I was, yeah, right, sure. Because I've been told that many times. But one day in March 2022, the end of March, 2002, I looked at myself one day. It was a horrible day, and there was just a really, really bad day and a bad night. It was so scary. I saw demons in my sleep trying to go to sleep. I thought the first time in my life I actually got down on my knees, and believe it or not, I got on my knees and prayed and said, God, please help me get a night's sleep, an hour's sleep. I'll get up in the morning, I'll do anything you like, anything you tell me to do. And sure enough, I woke up and I remembered the promise I made, and I found my way and called Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how I found myself to sobriety. I walked in that day as a 350-pound man at a meeting in Las Vegas, Nevada. Wondered why and the heck I was really there. All these people that I was not like, but ultimately I found out every one of them just like me. I had surrendered. I was out of control. My life was really, 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 really a mess. It's been 21 years. A lot's happened in that time, and I encourage people to look at defining moments, defining times in their life. I had a number of them over the years that defined who I am and my actions and defined my life and make me who I am. But that one in particular, making that one change, that one day, that one time, praying that one time at that particular moment and surrendering to a power that was greater than me, I believe, and walking in and deciding to be open and learn. And I learned, and I had a tough few years. The first few years of not partying and drinking, and I was broke in my career. Everything in my life was changing, but it did change. I did start to lose some of that weight. I didn't drink. I went to meetings. If anybody on this call is familiar with support programs, we have sponsors and steps and all those things, and I learned them, and I dug in. And I dug into a lot of things in my life. I dug into my faith. I decided to look at it and decide what I really believe, not what my parents taught me or what church I went to. And I was bored. I studied a number of religions, spiritual programs, made some clear decisions for myself what I believed. I looked into my politics, what I believed. I wanted to draw a line on my values and what fit, and in a career that I was as well. I bought into this thing that I could change one day at a time. I didn't have anything else going for me, but let me share something. It worked. It's been 21 years. I'm going to fast forward since we have little time. I went from that period of time, a walking dead man, no integrity, nobody trusted me. The friends I had, I used. The family I had didn't exist. My kids, they didn't know who I was. Not everything changed overnight. However, today, I sit at half that weight at about 170, 75 pounds, which is important. You got to take care of your health. And I've kept that off now for a long time. My financial picture is pretty darn good. My wife, 14 years now, almost 15 years, and I live here in Nevada at a beautiful home that was custom built that we paid for when I was getting evicted from apartments to how I live today. I have friends. I'm involved in Rotary Clubs, Toastmasters clubs, Chamber of Commerce.
You've been leaders here. Don't be bashful, Craig. Tell them what positions you have. You are a leader. You've been
I think leaders are really more supporters than anything else. But I'm president and been area director for an organization called Toastmasters. I'm past president of our Rotary Club here in Mesquite, Nevada. I hold some other things. I'm an area director for a corporate company that I earn my income from. I'm also an author. I am published. I actually wrote a book and published it called Don't Look Back, You're Not Going That Way. It's an interesting story because it's out of my journals and what happened and what it was like that first year of sobriety and a couple of years after, what I went through. And it's pretty graphic, but if you get a chance to pick it up, it's on Amazon. But to that end, I enjoyed writing so much. I have a blog I write from time to time in. It's called followcraig.com, so you can always find me. And I have a new book coming out at the end of the year that's titled Moments to Memories. And I want to take a moment on that for a second, because as we share today, this very minute, this moment that we all are together in will never happen again. So it'll be the only time that this moment as we know it. The sun is shining the way it is, as you have the coffee, the things that you have, the people that you're talking to, the family that you love, the arms that you're going to hug or not hug today, the bills you pay, the job you work at, whatever's happening right at this very, very moment, this moment will never happen again. It will become a memory.
So true.
And we have to live in that moment and make the best of it and make it good. Many of us know what an ATM machine is, where you go get your cash. I like to use that ATM acronym a little differently. I call it adore the moment, because that's what we have. You gotta love the moment, adore the moment. Life is really, really precious. Life is really good. You have bad moments, things that happen, but you don't have to have a bad day. And I've learned that.
You help us all. I just want to add, Craig, when we're around you, you help us all have a good day. And you bring that out as president and friend and with what you're doing. So I wanted to thank you for that, because we all appreciate you. And this is marvelous what you're sharing with us.
Well, it's kind of how I've learned to think. It boils down to, I don't make all this stuff out of my head. I know I hear it, but I retain stuff. And I'll remember somebody telling me, you can get up and there's no such thing as a bad day. You don't have to have a bad day. Now, you can have a hiccup, you can have a bad moment in that day, but the day doesn't have to be a bad day. The tool that I learned to use in the very beginning as I walked into sobriety and changing my life was writing. I really recommend to anybody to write a daily journal. Somebody told me to do that, I do it. I did it, and I thought, oh my gosh, my journal used to read, oh, woe is me and all the stuff going on today. My journal is filled with what made me smile today, what made me happy. I always look, before I even started out, what was the happiest thing I remember today? Who made me happy? What did I see? I think it's so important to be joyful at the end of the day when you go to bed. I mean, I am spiritual. I believe that we need to sleep good. People have a hard time sleeping. I found a way. I'm going to give you a tool. I give it all to God at night. Now, you may think of God as something else. I don't know what you want to call him, but I believe there's a God in charge of the universe. I'm going to show this. I think he has a gigantic desk, a huge desk, like a madman desk, a monstrous thing, and on top of it are piles of papers and piles of files, piles of this from all over the universe, of problems everywhere, things to take care of, solves, from people to flooding to whatever's happening. So I say to God at the end of the day, God, will you take my challenges, my problems, all the stuff going on, whatever, let me just lay them on the corner of your desk there. You don't have to do anything. Don't want you to do it for anything. Just keep them on the corner, kind of keep an eye on them, and let me get you a good night's sleep. When I get in the morning, I'll pick them back up and get back to work on them. Because I don't expect God to solve my problems, but I do look forward to his strength to get through them. And I think that really helped me when I started to figure that out, because I didn't used to sleep. Today I do. My life is not perfect, but it's good. And God's been very, very good to me, and I am so grateful for that. And I believe in my heart that God has been good to you too, even though sometimes you don't think he has.
That's true. That is very true. Now, Craig, how long did it take for you then to give up alcohol, so you never had any during the day?
I gave it up that very day on March 29th, 2002.
You did? Oh, that's marvelous.
I've not had another drink.
So it comes down to mind power and determination, and when you decided that was the end, there was a better future, then you were able to do it with your positive mindset and the help of God.
Help God and help. And you know what? You can't do all this stuff alone. You've got to have support. Anybody thinks for a moment that they can go, well, I can stop being fat, I can stop eating, or I can stop eating cookies, or I can stop drinking, or I can stop doing a drug on my own. I can do it. I have the willpower. No, you can't, because you're powerless over it. And damn it, you got to find help, and it's okay to ask for help. It isn't anything wrong with it, because you know what happens is when you learn how to help, when you learn to accept help, that's the time that you can start learning how to help somebody. Because until you can be willing to receive, you can't give it. And the only real freedom we have, the only freedom we really, really have to give ourselves, and the best gift we can give, is the knowledge that we have and the help to help somebody else.
I think that's great, and I love the title of your book, Don't Look Back, You're Not Going That Way. And where can they get your book? Craig, is it on Amazon?
Yeah, it is. It's on Amazon. There's digital as well as paperback and hard copy both.
Very good.
And it's really easy to find. Just don't look back. You're not going that way. Or find Craig Peterson. It'll be there.
Well, we've really enjoyed this, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for your encouragement, Craig, because life is what happens while we're busy making other plans. And we want to thank anyone who's joining today, and we'd love their feedback. So have a great day, and we look forward to hearing from you again, and with special blessings for everyone. Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome. Goodbye, everybody.